Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. I'm already bored with Kid and Severide's Chicago Fire Season 13 baby story, before it even starts. Kelly Severide and Stella Kidd's story significantly moves forward in Chicago Fire Season 12, Episode 12, Relief Cut, but I'm having a difficult time being excited about it. Despite being a procedural, the One Chicago franchise separates itself from other Wolf Entertainment franchises by leaning a little more on the personal storylines of its characters. This is most true with Firehouse 51, where its members' narratives tend to be seamlessly integrated into its weekly cases. While everyone has their respective woes, it's safe to say that Chicago Fire's most prominent characters are Taylor Kinney's Severide and Miranda Ray Mayo's Kid. Like many chiehards, I'm having a difficult time remembering what Chicago Fire was without the couple. Romances are usual in Firehouse 51, with several characters dating a co-worker or two. However, because of the nature of their job, not to mention the show's long-term format, maintaining a happy relationship is tricky. Kid and Severide have underdone their fair share of crises, with the latest one being in the 2025 One Chicago crossover. After that, however, Chicago Fire Season 13 finally decides to move their personal narrative forward as the pair revisit their stance on starting a family. The couple has been married since the Season 10 finale, but Kid and Severide's story has been stagnant for a while. I'm mainly chalking it to Kinney's unexpected time off in the middle of Season 11 and the truncated run the following year. Even then, when Severide brought up the idea of starting a family in the Chicago Fire Season 12 finale, I was against it. I didn't want a pregnancy storyline that would take her agency. At that time, I even suggested that it was time for Kid and Severide's marriage to end. Admittedly, I'm still not happy with the way Chicago Fire didn't fully explore the fallout from Severide's disappearance, but at least, when the idea of having a kid is brought up again, it's coming from Kid. This alleviates my fears about a dramatic, unexpected pregnancy storyline that would drive a wedge between them. I'm convinced that Chicago Fire can keep their story interesting without pitting them against each other. That said, my excitement deflated when Kid suggested adopting instead of getting pregnant. While still better than a pregnancy twist trope, it's a tired storyline, especially in One Chicago. Being on the air for more than a decade, I understand that storylines and plots being redone is inevitable. As long as NBC and One Chicago come up with fresh twists, I assume that die-hard viewers will continue to tune in because they are invested in the characters' journeys. That being said, doing another adoption story for Severide and Kid at this point is just wildly uninspired. We've seen this plot done so many times with Matt Casey and Gabby Dawson, and later on with Sylvie Brett. Joe Cruz also underwent the same route when it came to expanding his family. Beyond Chicago Fire, Chicago PD's intelligence has also told a similar story with Kim Burgess and Michaela. It did a great job making sure that it was compelling because of the mystery that came with it. At this point, I don't think One Chicago can do another one that is intriguing enough for its viewers. While I appreciate that Chicago Fire Season 12 explains why Kid wants to adopt thanks to the introduction of his cousin, the storyline altogether isn't the narrative I wanted for her and Severide. Ultimately, Kid getting pregnant is a more interesting way for her and Severide to start a family. Not because adoption isn't a good way to do it, but purely because of storytelling purposes. Going down this creative route can open new narrative opportunities for Chicago Fire, and for a show that has already been on the air for years, not to mention dipping ratings, it could rejuvenize the procedural. Understandably, doing this after Kid blatantly saying that she isn't sure yet if she wants to be pregnant means that it would be a while before they can have a child. However, I would rather wait for a better way to do this than rush it and come up with a plot that isn't satisfying. Given Kid and Severide's importance to the Chicago Fire, they deserve only good stories moving forward. The Season 13 baby storyline for Kid and Severide in Chicago Fire seems poised to be a running theme, but honestly, I'm already feeling disconnected. Maybe it's because of how predictable it feels or how much the show has already hinted at it, even before the actual storyline officially starts. I can't help but feel like I've seen this before, just with different characters and different sets of circumstances. A new baby is supposed to be a momentous occasion, but I can't shake the feeling that this storyline is more about stretching for content than offering something fresh. First, let's talk about Kid and Severide's relationship dynamic. They've been through so much, and their bond has been one of the most consistently strong on the show. But the second you introduce a baby into the mix, it changes everything. It's almost like the writers feel this pressure to add the next big thing into the couple's life for dramatic effect. But what's missing is the spark that made their relationship stand out in the first place. I mean, we've already seen this type of story unfold with other characters, Casey and Brett, Cruz and Chloe, and it's always the same. The challenges, the excitement, the fears, and the end result, a happy ending with a baby to show for it. But with Kid and Severide, the predictability is starting to feel like a weight they're dragging behind them. The most frustrating part is that we're left to anticipate a storyline that feels like a rerun of every other baby plotline we've witnessed in other seasons. Severide, the protective father-to-be, struggling with his tough guy exterior and suddenly having to soften in the face of fatherhood. Kid, a fiercely independent woman who has found herself in a position where she's torn between her career and her new role as a mom. We've seen it over and over again. And let's not forget the maternity leave drama that'll likely become a major talking point. We've watched plenty of characters go on maternity leave in the past, with varying degrees of tension, and while it can serve as a meaningful reflection on a woman's place in a high-stakes profession, it feels like the same narrative recycled with each new pregnancy. I know Kid's strong enough to handle the challenges, but this storyline is going to lean so heavily on the typical, I need to balance my work life with my family life, that it'll leave me yawning before it even gets off the ground. Let's talk about the emotional beats too. Sure, there will be moments where Severide's usually tough and aloof character shows vulnerability, and Kid will no doubt have her heart-to-heart with Casey or Stella about her fears. But we've already seen these emotional arcs before. There's something about the repeated nature of these beats that makes it difficult to invest in the character's growth anymore. Yes, new babies bring out emotions, love, excitement, nervousness. But do we need to keep revisiting the same tired tropes to make it interesting? It's almost like the writers are leaning on the baby plot because they don't know where else to take the characters. Not to mention, the timing feels off. Season 13 is supposed to be the one where the show takes big swings and pushes boundaries, but instead it's leaning into a storyline that feels like a safe bet. Maybe it's just me, but after all these years it would have been nice to see Kid and Severide face a challenge that isn't wrapped in a shiny pink or blue bow. How about testing them with a challenge that feels more unique to their individual arcs, rather than just tacking on the next step in the happily ever after formula? On top of that, the sheer predictability of the baby storyline is somewhat underwhelming in the context of the larger series. Chicago Fire thrives on its action, on high-stakes situations, and on the emotional journeys that stem from the chaos of the firehouse. When it slows down for a baby plot, it risks losing the pace that has made the show so gripping. The intensity and urgency of firehouse emergencies just doesn't mesh with the slower, quieter moments that come with pregnancy and preparation for a baby. As viewers, we're supposed to care deeply about this new chapter for Severide and Kid, but the suspense feels almost non-existent. There's no surprise here, no curveball. We know exactly how it's going to unfold.